Father in heaven, again we come before you, Lord, asking for wisdom to interpret this book, which is so loaded with so much information. We need your help, Lord. You have told us that if we ask you for wisdom, that you will give it to us. And Father, we want to make sure that we don't say things that cannot be backed up, that cannot be documented, that we may be able to put this on a board like Habakkuk said and show it to the world and share it with people that have no hope today. So many people that are hurting, people that are without jobs, people that are without families, people that have moved out of their homes and lost them. Father, we're living in a time that nobody in this room has ever lived on in this country. And we see that great and decisive events are about to take place, and we need to be ready. And the readiness that we need, Father, is to know you better, to have you turn our lives around, to make sure that there's nothing that gets in between us and you. So that's our prayer today, Father. Help us, I pray, to understand these prophecies. Make it clear to us, I pray. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so Iran, the higher horn, comes up last. Iran acts to boost military. This goes back to, let's see the time, 1992. This is just after the Gulf War. Iraq has just been defeated, and here's the news line. U.S. faces old rival in the Mideast, Iran. Through secret deals with Russia, North Korea, and other countries, Iran is conducting a multi-billion-dollar arms buildup that is fast making it the dominant military power in the Persian Gulf. Iran wants the bomb, 1992. Iran makes new grab for power. As worrisome as Saddam Hussein is to Saudi Arabia and other states in the Gulf, they view him as minor problem compared to Iran. House members call for the overthrow in Iran. Can you imagine this happening today? 1992. And this is all the things that Bush knew. Iran missile program still a threat, 2000. After the World Trade Center bombing, Iran's supreme leader said in a blistering speech Wednesday that his nation would not participate in any U.S.-led coalition against terrorism, taking a tough line despite many Iranians' expressions of sympathy for America. Khamenei, that's the name of the new guy, called the U.S. behavior disgusting and said in a state-run television address to the nation that Iran does not consider the United States competent and sincere enough to lead any global campaign against terrorism. Iranians rally against the United States, angered by United States labeling of Iran as part of an axis of evil. Hundreds of thousands of Iranians chanted death to America. U.S., Iran, others promote terror, 2002. U.S. warns Iran against harboring Al-Qaeda. Bush renews sanctions against Iran, 2003. IAEA sets October 31st deadline. This is in 2003. We gave them a deadline. Did they listen? They didn't care. They violated it. They find traces in Iran of uranium. The Bush administration said on Thursday that Iran had one last chance to comply. That's back in 2003, 6 years ago. Iran managed to make plutonium now. The concessions were announced in Moscow by Hassan Rouhani, the head of Iran's powerful Supreme National Security Council. Washington has urged Moscow to freeze an $800 million deal to help build Iran's first nuclear reactor. This is why China and Russia are together with Iran, and that's why none of the security sanctions from the United Nations are applicable, because Russia and China always throw the red flag and say, oh, don't touch Iran. They're not really that bad, because they've got money invested there. Censures Iran for nuke cover-ups. The resolution adopted unanimously by the 35-member Board of Governors doesn't impose a deadline or directly threaten sanctions, but its harsh wording amounted to substantial pressure on Iran to clear up suspicions. 2004, still nothing. Images show Iran may be hiding nuke plans. Look at these images. They're hiding it. We're going to read it now. The pictures of the Natanz facility taken in 2002 and 2004 show that Iran has been trying to cover up the compound. We're really quite amazed at what we're seeing in this imagery. And we're also quite amazed at what we're not seeing. The 2002 images show buildings under construction. But in the 2004 images, you can see that they completely covered it with a thick layer of dirt. It looks like the Iranians have a fear something is going to try to destroy this building before it can make bombs. There's the buildings right here, and it's been totally covered up. Here you see it here. You see the road right here, covered up. The building is protected by 8 feet thick concrete walls, primarily to protect it against airstrikes. Also, the entrance to the main building consists of a U-shaped tunnel. This way, even smart bombs cannot soar or glide or crawl into the hole. Photos of the Iraq facility show that between August 2001 and 4, heavy construction took place. Regime change in Iran if Bush wins, 2004. Senior official says U.S. to help usually dissatisfied populations. Iran threatens strike against U.S. and Israel, 2004. Europeans to set nuke deadlines for Iran, 2004. The Iran connection, U.S. Newsweek. The Baghdad Files, a trove of secret intelligence reports spells out in chilling detail how Iraq's dangerous next-door neighbors is aiding the anti-U.S. insurgency. Holy man, Iraq, this is Khamenei. This is Janati, told Iraqis they have no other choice but to rise up against U.S. forces there and drive them out. Iran feels it should be the predominant power in the region. Iran and the bomb. You see pictures where they're publicly showing this off now. Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei overlooks a missile display in Tehran. Workers in the Iraq heavy water plant, part of Iran's nuclear infrastructure, and China and Russia are helping them build the nuclear reactor. President Bush refuses to rule out war with Iran. Khatani says his country is ready to defend itself against a U.S. attack. The United States is pushing for a peaceful solution to its nuclear impasse. See, right now, we can't really make this move unless they really incite us. We can't really make it because the population of this country would go haywire with the situation that we have right now. The world learned how terror could cripple a superpower when Iranian students held 52 Americans hostage for 444 days. But the attacks against American interests didn't stop there. They've never told the truth on anything we've ever confronted them with, said Senator Rick Santorum in Pennsylvania, who has written legislation to turn up pressure on Iran. They will lie in order to get what they believe is necessary to protect this regime. Iran confirms it took key nuclear steps. Hardliner wins Iran's presidential election. This is this guy, Ahmadinejad. Also vowed to return Iran to the principles of the Islamic Revolution more than a quarter century ago. Such comments and reports about its inner circle of supporters. Iran's ultra-conservative president-elect, at once defiant and at ease, vowed Sunday to restart the nation's controversial nuclear power and warned European negotiators that building trust required mutual effort. You know, I don't know if you're following what's going on with Iran now. I think this is one of the biggest issues with Christians today. I know there's a lot of evil on the news. I don't ever watch the news on television, very seldom, but every day I get up in the morning, I go to the internet, Fox News, 5 minutes, and at the end of the day, Fox News, 5 minutes. If I see something important, I cut it out, I study it, I look at it, but we have got to be informed of what's going on. Ellen White says we are responsible for the signs of the times, and it is what helps people understand what is going on. Right now, this guy just had an election in Iran, and he really didn't win the election, but he's overthrowing the one that's there, and he's persecuting, and people have, young people are fed up with the totalitarian regime that they have, but these leaders that are all religionists have the hand on the country and they will not let go. And one of the things that could happen is if these leaders think that they're going to be overthrown, they may push the plug because their main concern is Israel. And they really want to get rid of Israel. No info to be shared. These are all news that you see that they're going to get Iran's call to wipe out Israel roundly condemned. Iran removing 40 ambassadors from post. China, Iran may finalize oil deal in March. Now they've got an oil deal with China and Russia. Bush warns of World War III if Iran gains nuclear weapons. This is big words. Bush and the people in this country are concerned that this could bring on World War III. I've told people that if you're interested in avoiding World War III, it seems like you ought to be interested in preventing them, Iran, from having the knowledge necessary to make a nuclear weapon. Iran tests new weapons, says it can easily close the Strait of Hormuz. Imagine the Strait of Hormuz. Iran announced Monday that it has tested, this is 2008, a new weapon capable of sinking ships nearly 200 miles away and reiterated threats to close a strategic waterway at the mouth of the Persian Gulf. Up to 40% of the world's oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow passage along Iran's southeast coast. And this is the Strait of, let's see what I've got here. Through its waters, these giant ocean-going tankers pass much of the oil from Bahrain, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and United Arab Emirates. This is why they are concerned with Iran, because the oil that we desperately need in this country. Obama, U.S. to withdraw most Iraq troops by August 2010. This has to happen, in my opinion, before that time. British official warns Iran on embassy staffer arrest. July 2009, just a few days ago. British official, again, our ally. Panel in Iran will oversee investigations into unrest. Internal fights he is confronting. The chief of the judiciary announced the appointment of a panel to oversee investigations by allies of the president into the post-election unrest. They're having a lot of problems right now. Ahmadinejad and Chavez vow to strengthen ties together against the United States. Chavez has been there, I don't know how many times now. It's somewhere here. I think 7 times now. Iraq, Iran, and Syria fomenting terror. Now, okay, hold on a moment. This is Syria now. We're starting with Syria now. So you can get an idea of Syria. Syria and Iran, dealers in terror, back to 1986. North Korea joins hands with Iran. The unmasking of Assad, 1986. Linking Syria to terrorism. Syrian president arrives in Iran on surprise visit, 2003. Rumsfeld warns Syria, Iran against interfering in Iraq. Israel attacks alleged Islamic hijab base in Syria. With little option for military retaliation, Syria turned for international support. On request from Damascus, the UN Security Council and the 22-member Arab League held emergency sessions Sunday as Syria's foreign minister brought measures to deter Israel aggression. Keep your eyes on this 22-member Arab League. U.S. imposes sanctions on Syria. Syria denied Scud missile claims. Syria calls for emergency Arab League summit after United Nations passes stern resolution. Call for the Arab League, those 22 nations, to come together and help them. Syria supports Iran's right to nuclear technology. There is the 2 leaders from Syria. This is just recently now, January the 19th. Russia's foreign minister Thursday called for a cautious approach to the mounting crisis over Iran's renewal of nuclear research, while a senior U.S. envoy accused Iran of deceiving the world about its intentions. Considering that Syria is the steadfast party confronting Israel and Iran is the defender of the Islamic Revolution, this obliged us to have more consultation and cooperation, the Iranian president said. Moscow and Beijing carry a great weight with other IAEA board countries, and both have vetoes on the 15-member Security Council. They are opposed to sanctioning a country which they have strong economic and strategic ties. In recent days, they have expressed reluctance even to the idea of a referral. Syrian president indicates rejection of a UN interview. Rice, Syria, Iran inflame violence. This is Condoleezza Rice. Syria, Iran meet as deadline looms on nuke package. U.S. military helicopters launch attack inside Syria. 90% of foreign fighters enter Iraq through Syria. Soon, grievous troubles will arise among the nations. Trouble that will not cease until Jesus comes. When this gets going, it's not going to stop. As never before, we need to press together. The judgments of God are in the land. The wars and rumors of wars, the destruction by fire and flood, say clearly that the time of trouble, which is to increase until the end, is very near at hand. We have no time to lose. The world is stirred with the spirit of war. The prophecies of the 11th of Daniel have almost reached their final fulfillment. Now we're going to skip this one. The he-goat waxed very great. We're going to skip this one. Great horn was broken. This is all Daniel 8. We're going to go to this one first. Four winds of heaven. After we hit Iran, the he-goat, everybody's going to applaud and say, wow, finally you got rid of that ram that's been bothering us for 20 years. Who knows what they're going to do? The people are going to actually applaud that we went and hit it. After that, everybody's going to be happy. And then we're going to see that the United States is going to lose power, and four powers are going to rise on the scene. And this is what we're going to study now, four winds of heaven. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, that's America, and for it, in its place, came up four notable ones toward the four winds of heaven. America, the great horn, what will it do to be broken? Are the signs beginning to show? We will revisit this question, but before we do, we need to find out the four powers that come up after America is broken. The four notable powers, Daniel 8:8. Therefore the he-goat waxed great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came up four notable ones toward the four winds of heaven. In Daniel 7:3, we saw four beasts come up from the sea, namely Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. This is what we've always studied. As Bible scholars, we know that these are the four empires that have ruled the world: Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. They came up from the sea. However, in Daniel 7:17, the angel describes these powers to Daniel as follows. These great beasts, which are four kings, which shall arise out of the earth. So Daniel gets this vision. He doesn't understand it. And the angel says, Daniel, don't worry about it. These powers are going to arise out of the earth. But when the angel says that, Babylon was about to cease being a power. So if Babylon had already ceased being a power, why would the angel say these kings shall arise out of the earth if Babylon is one of those powers? It cannot be. It has to refer to future kingdoms that will appear on the scene towards the end of time. We have historically interpreted the four beasts from the sea, Daniel 7:3, as Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. When Daniel received this vision, he was troubled and asked the angel what these things meant. The angel said, these great beasts which are four kings which shall arise out of the earth. Please notice that this vision takes place in the first year of Belshazzar, Daniel 7:1. Nebuchadnezzar had already passed on, and shortly thereafter Belshazzar would invite 1,000 of his lords to a great feast, wherein that same night, in Daniel 5:30, he would be slain and the power would pass to the Medes and the Persians. So Babylon was almost non-existent. If these four beasts applied to Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome, the angel would have never said, these great beasts shall arise out of the earth, when Babylon had already been in existence for more than 60 years. Do you see that? That's a very important point to pick up here. The first four beasts of Daniel 3 came from the sea. These other four beasts shall arise in the future out of the earth. The first four beasts were described in detail in Daniel 7:3-8. But this second set of beasts are not described at all. Therefore, we must look at the interpretation of the first 4 beasts and see if any nations today match that description. Daniel 7:4. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. This first beast is a coalition of 2 nations. What nations today use the eagle and the lion as a symbol? Eagle, America, and the lion, Britain. Okay, very clear. America the eagle, Great Britain the lion. Have you noticed the coalition that has been formed by these 2 nations? We've already talked this, U.S. and Britain, 1986. All of this, we've already seen all of this. Always Britain and U.S. together. September 20, 2001, Bush addresses the U.S. Congress and the attack on the World Trade Center. Who was the only prime minister invited to attend the ceremony and recognized as a friend of America? Tony Blair, Prime Minister of England. U.S. action in the Middle East to be the eagle's last scream. This is almost a prophecy. This is unbelievable here. Look at what this person is saying in 1990. U.S. action in the Middle East to be the eagle's last scream. Karen Elliott House of the Wall Street Journal writes that before Saddam Hussein goes down, he will take others with him. A U.S. attack could ignite an Arab states war that would do for the thrones of the Middle East what Europe's civil war, World War I, did for the thrones of Europe. Years ago, an author called Britain's attack on the Suez the lion's last roar. Britain is the lion. Is this the eagle's last scream? I submit to you that this is exactly what's going to happen when the United States hits that ram, Iran. After that, we will cease being the power that we are. We will still be the strongest nation on the earth, but now we're going to share it with 4 powers. And do we see that happening? Do we see China threatening us? We may take the money out of America if you don't get together. Do we see Russia throwing their weight around? This is happening, and we're concerned. Daniel 7:5, and behold another beast, a second like to a bear. And it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. Who does the bear remind you of? Russia. Russia the bear. This is 1991. There's the bear, and he's got Perestroika, Lithuania, Latvia. Exactly what happened. Exactly what's getting ready now. Bush spent the day with the leaders of 3 Baltic republics, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. Many in the Baltic countries are still bitter about the Soviet annexation of their countries and the harsh occupation that followed the war for nearly 50 years. This is happening today, 2005. Has Russia really ceased to be a threat to America? Is Russia teaming up with China? You know, there were those that after 1989, that the Russian wall came down, they were saying, oh, Russia is nothing to worry about. Let me tell you, Russia is taking advantage of this whole situation. And they are getting ready for a tremendous, tremendous battle that they feel is coming. Look at this, 1999. Yeltsin gets China's support, then blasts Clinton. It seems Mr. Clinton has forgotten Russia is a great power that possesses a nuclear arsenal, he said. Boris Yeltsin lashed out at President Clinton on Thursday for criticizing Russia's war in Chechnya, reminding Clinton that Russia remains a nuclear power. It seems Mr. Clinton has forgotten Russia is a great power that possesses a nuclear arsenal. We aren't afraid at all of Clinton's anti-Russian position, Yeltsin said at a meeting with Chinese legislative chairman Li Peng. So he's got his buddy China next to him and he's throwing his weight around, right? I want to tell President Clinton that he alone cannot dictate how the world should live, work, and play. It is us who will dictate. And let me tell you, Putin is worse than Yeltsin by a long shot. Yeltsin's outburst delivered in front of supporters came after he secured Chinese backing for Russia's campaign to crush separatism in Chechnya. With restive minorities of its own in Tibet and the Muslim Northwest, China says Russia should deal with Chechnya as it sees fit. So China is saying, look, do what you got to do. We're not going to get in your way. Yeltsin and Yang initiated annual summit meetings in 1996 to draw the fierce Cold War rivals closer and build a strategic partnership. Since 1996, they've been talking to each other. These are two world powers. Putin to continue aid to Iran nuclear projects. Rejecting U.S. concerns about nuclear weapons, Russian President Vladimir Putin said Russia will keep assisting Iran with nuclear and military projects. Putin's comments threatened to complicate Bush's efforts to get an international consensus on how to deal with Iran. It is because of Russia and China that we have not made our move against Iran. We can't make it. Russia has made it clear that it intends to proceed with assisting the Iranians, whatever reservations others might express. American-Russian relations have become more tense in recent days. On Thursday, the United States protested Russian plans to sell surface-to-air missiles to Syria. In the last 18 months, Putin has meddled openly in Ukraine's presidential election and has curbed democracy in Russia by centralizing power, marginalizing political opponents, and controlling television and radio. So Russia is going back to controlling the country. They don't have freedom of the press. They don't have freedom of religion. We took a trip to Russia. We delivered 1 million books in Russia. Back in 1992? Or 91, 92. And we took 1 million books to Russia, 1 million great controversies, and 46,000 Bibles. And we traveled Russia from one end of the country to the other. When we finished, we boarded a train that took us throughout all of Siberia. We went to places where they had never seen an American. And let me tell you, we met some people there, little old ladies that were working back there, where you see people still pulling a cart with a horse and this type of thing. And they were talking to me about the 10 Commandments and this and that. And I said, how do you believe in all of this? Oh, because for all that time that communism was here, we would put into our clothing the 10 Commandments and parts of the Bible, and we would share it, and we would have Bible studies and this and that and the other. Tremendous trip. And we would get like this and put 300 books of great controversies here. And we would stand 8 of us right here. And all of a sudden, they didn't know what the books contained. It was the Holy Spirit completely. And we would stand in the back, and all of a sudden, we'd start giving out free books in hotels, in bus stations, in train stations, in subways, everything. And you would see 500 people just coming. Everybody wanted to get a book. And all of a sudden, the books, we can't handle it. 8 of us and all these people are coming. And we start stepping back because they don't want to wait. They're just going to go. And when they get to the boxes and the boxes are finished, you would see 70-year-old ladies fighting, I want it. And then finally, the box is empty. And I never forget a lady that looked at the box and said, wow, I didn't get one. And they were happy, they didn't fight, but dying for something from America that would bring them hope. We saw that in China, in India. We did it in 110 countries. We distributed 21 million copies of the Great Controversy in 110 countries over a period of 10 years. When we finished all of the countries that we could do, except Cuba, we decided, let's go to the Muslim countries. We projected our first trip to Egypt. We went to Egypt. We distributed in Egypt, and in 10 minutes, a police state, in 10 minutes, millions of people in the streets. We went to 10 different locations, and within 10 minutes, each one of us was apprehended. We were put in a prison. We thought for sure that we were going to get killed. And all of a sudden, secrecy, complete secrecy. 2 of the people in our group, there were 10 of us, had a dream that we were going to be killed. And of course, they had not shared that dream. But when we get apprehended, they share that. And panic went through the camp. And everybody was scared. Everybody was worried. And let me tell you, God is so great. We were there 3 or 4 days, and they would take us from one place to another with 15 or 16 patrol cars in front and in back, like if we were just incredible criminals. Could not contact the American embassy. Could not get any help from anybody. We thought for sure this was it. And then finally, We're walking down. They imprisoned us for 31 hours. We're walking down the airport at 1 o'clock in the morning. And walking down the airport, 1 o'clock in the morning, no one in the airport. Just a file of 10 of us, a guards in front and guards in back. And I see some telephone booths. So I decide, well, let me see if I can run into the telephone booth and make a phone call. So I get out of line. They don't see me getting out of the line. I get into the phone booth, and I start trying to call the American Embassy. Cannot get it. And I see that the guy stops and says, wait a moment, there's one missing. And he goes, in an airport, humongous airport, not a soul in the airport, everything is empty. And he's looking around like this, and he just goes right through me. I'm right there in the phone booth. He never sees me. Never sees me. Made a phone call, couldn't get through. I left a message. And then 31 hours later, the American Embassy representative came and saw us, and he said, you know, the reason why you have been apprehended and you have been hassled back and forth is because if we would not have treated you that way, they would have burnt you. One of the books that you distributed, it was a little pamphlet from the Great Controversy, the New World Order. It's called What's Behind the New World Order. I don't know if some of you have seen that. We had it in all the country, in all the distributed all over America. And one of those books fell into the hands of the editor of the largest newspaper in Egypt. And we were able to, they have a readership of 60 million people. Came out in the front page, and we were in the police station, and they came to us, and we had decided, look, if somebody gets caught, we can't say what we're doing. So if somebody gets caught in this mission, don't turn anybody else in, don't say what we're doing, and we'll try to get you later, but we'll just keep on moving. We always arrived at night, checked into our hotel so that nobody would be nobody would be suspicious. In the morning, we would distribute the books and go to another city, because if not, the persecution could have been awesome. And we were in jail, and all of a sudden, they came to me. I was one of the first ones taken, and they said, we know you have people here. Where are they? I'm sorry, I can't disclose that information. Where do you get the books? About these books we paid for, we paid the taxes, everything. Well, the guy that we had paid taxes for the books obviously took the money and never reported it. So that's how they got us. And little by little they came, and finally they came, brought me back again. As we were waiting in that police station, we would see the boxes of books they had there, and we would see the policemen going to the boxes and taking a book. I was sitting like in a corner, and they would be taking the book and reading it in the police station. God is unbelievable what he's doing. We have no idea how God is going to finish this work. But I'll tell you, when people start receiving dreams of how this work is going to get finished, and all these Muslims start receiving dreams from heaven, God could turn around 1 million people in a heartbeat. Anyways, they came and said, look, we now know that there's 10 of you. We've got all 10. And if you don't believe us, let me get the phone. So he gets the phone, and he calls Odette, which was one of the ones that was working with us, and he calls Emil, another one, and we all said, wow, in 10 minutes, a police state, they apprehended all of us in different parts, surrounded by millions of Egyptians. This is how these people work. They're not wasting any time. Anyways, I don't know how I got into that. Oh, in Putin. Putin, it's going to get ugly with Putin. Russia to give China oil supply priority. Retired chess champion Kasparov to take on dictator Putin. This guy has a lot of nerve. I believe that my energy, my political vision, my authority will help millions of Russians dissatisfied with Putin's rising dictatorship to get united to resist the pressure and bring Russia back to the democratic route. Putin inherited a country where democracy had flaws, but it was a democracy. Now we have no free press. Public parliament is controlled by Putin and his men from Kremlin, speculating that the Russian leader's next move would be to eliminate free presidential elections, which is what he did. He put a puppet president, but he's still controlling everything. Russian bear who loves Black Sabbath set to succeed Putin. This is just brand no, this is 2007. The man backed by Vladimir Putin for the next presidential election is a heavy metal loving 42-year-old whose surname comes from the Russian word for bear. Was nominated by the ruling president and 3 other smaller post-Kremlin on Monday afternoon. President Putin later said on national television, I have known Dmitry for over 17 years and completely support his candidacy. Surname comes from the Russian meaning bear, an animal which has long been associated with the country. There's no doubt that the bear is Russia. If the vision is for the end of time, if these are beasts that are going to arise in the future, then all we have to do is go to see Russia, realize that it's the bear, and that's one of the countries that is mentioned in Daniel 7. Russia threatens response if U.S. Poland follow through with the missile defense plan. The United States and Poland signed a deal Wednesday to place a U.S. missile defense base just 115 miles from Russia, a move swiftly followed by a new warning from Moscow of a possible military response. See, they're bluffing. They're trying to scare us. It's also the case that when you threaten Poland, you perhaps forget that it is not 1988, Rice said. It's 2008, and the United States has a firm treaty guaranteed to defend Poland's territory as if it was the territory of the United States. So we are obligated to protect Poland if they get invaded. Hours after the signing, Russia's foreign ministry warned that Moscow's response would go beyond diplomacy. Well, they didn't do anything. The system to be based in Poland lacks any target other than Russian intercontinental ballistic missiles. In this case, Russia will be forced to react, and not only through diplomatic channels, it said without elaborating. Along with the main deal, the two nations signed a so-called Declaration on Strategic Cooperation, which is to deepen their military and political partnership. It includes a mutual commitment to come to each other's assistance immediately if one is under attack, enhancing existing obligations both have as NATO members. Should we be worried about the bear? I think we should. That's why we don't make our move against Iran. But something is going to happen. Russia will not support forced sanctions on Iran. This is just 2 days ago. Yes, 2 days ago. Vladimir Putin's spokesman says the Russian Prime Minister has warned against the use of force or new sanctions against Iran over its nuclear power. This is going to get real ugly. Daniel 7:6. After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. This is the hardest that I had trying to come up with who is the leopard. And you're going to see, I hope you're going to see that this is very clear also. China, the leopard. Daniel saw the leopard which had 4 heads. A leopard is known for its tremendous speed and agility with which it attacks its prey. After its last civil war in 1949, and an estimated 36 million deaths during the Great Chinese Famine of 1958, the economy of the People's Republic of China is the 3rd largest economy in the world after the US and Japan. It is the 2nd largest in the world after that of the United States, with a gross domestic product when measured on a purchasing power parity. China has been the fastest growing major nation for the past 30 years. The 4 heads, Asia's 4 tigers. This is back from 1988. I used to think Japan was going to be the leopard, but Japan doesn't have the capability. It's not a threat to America. It's got to be China. You're going to see why. But Asia's 4 tigers, South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Singapore. Japanese officials, on the other hand, see themselves as defenders of the Asian exporters. The tigers, the Japanese contend, are still only cubs and should be nurtured rather than forced to grow up too fast. The 4 tigers are being criticized as a threat to the rest of the world just because their trade surpluses have been swelling at an astonishing speed. Everything we buy here, where is it made? China, Taiwan, Singapore. Hong Kong. Beginning as a trading port, Hong Kong became a crown colony of the United Kingdom in 1842, was reclassified as a British dependent territory in 1983, and remained so until the transfer of its sovereignty to the People's Republic of China in 1997. So now Hong Kong belongs to China. That's one of the 4 heads. Taiwan. The island group has been governed by the Republic of China since 1949, when it lost the Chinese Civil War to the Communist Party of China. Today, the Republic of China itself is commonly known as Taiwan. The political status of Taiwan is complex because it is claimed by the People's Republic of China. This state was established in 1949 on mainland China and considers itself the successor state of the Republic of China. Taiwan's rapid economic growth in the decades after World War II has transformed it into an advanced economy as one of the 4 Asian tigers. Taiwan is the second head, clearly belongs to to China. Korea. Japan surrendered to the Allied powers in 1945, signaling the end of World War II, only further embroiled Korea in foreign rivalries. On August 1948, the Republic of Korea, South Korea, was established. On September 1948, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, North Korea, was established. On June 1950, North Korean forces invaded South Korea, following China's entry on behalf of North Korea. So the one that's backing up North Korea is China. The food, they get it from China. The arms, they get it from China. A stalemate ensued for the final 2 years of the conflict. The war left almost 3 million Koreans dead or wounded and millions of others homeless and separated from their families. The Republic of Korea's economic growth over the past several decades has been spectacular. Per capita GNP, only 100 in 1963, is close to 20,000. South Korea is now the United States' 7th largest trading partner and is the 13th largest economy in the world. Tiny little country. North Korea. China is North Korea's most important ally, biggest trading partner, and main source of food, arms, and fuel. Council of Foreign Relations, July 21st, 2009. China's support for Pyongyang, North Korea's capital, ensures a friendly nation on its northeastern border, as well as provides a buffer zone between China and democratic South Korea, which is home to around 29,000 U.S. troops and Marines. This allows China to reduce its military deployment in its northeast and focus more directly on the issue of Taiwan's independence. Will the Leopard use North Korea to invade South Korea? I believe so. You see how they're threatening that they're going to invade South Korea? This is why we're scared of them. And South Korea is trembling. North Korea warns of strike against South Korea, May 27th of this year. The isolated communist regime said through its official news agency that it would respond with military action if South Korea tries to stop or search any of its ships as part of the US-led Proliferation Security Initiative. Singapore. Singapore's trade with China reached $67 billion in 2005, an increase of 28% over the corresponding period. A 7-fold growth in Sino-Singapore trade was registered in the last decade, from $7.6 billion in 1994 to $53 billion in 2004. As of 2006, China is Singapore's 4th largest trading partner, accounting for 9.4% share of Singapore's total trade. They are looking at Singapore, and they're going to take over Singapore before this is over. China, Singapore, eye new opportunity for cooperation. These are the 2 prime ministers. Next year, the 2 countries celebrate the 20th anniversary of the establishment of bilateral diplomatic relations. Statistics from Singapore showed that the trade volume between China and Singapore reached $27 billion in the first 7 months of this year, and China remains the 2nd largest trade partner of Singapore. The Leopard has Singapore in its sight and is moving quickly to acquire its wealth. PetroChina ends Singapore Petro deal. They were buying the oil. Now look what's happened. Beijing-based PetroChina board has announced that it has indirectly become the single owner of Singapore Petroleum Company. Start trading in currencies most happening. Okay. PetroChina on the 4th of September of this year purchased a 50.7% stake in Singapore via a subsidiary, PetroChina International, in addition to the 45.1% stake it acquired on June of 2009. So silently, they now own the oil of Singapore. Okay? U.S. must keep eye on China military buildup. Yet a little notice recent by the Secretary of Defense to Congress serves as an alarming reminder that China isn't wasting any time building militarily while the U.S. is otherwise occupied, and that the North Pacific power could present a formidable military challenge if in the future it became an outright foe. So while we're dealing here with Obama and the issues that we have, they're building up, massively building up. This was in 2003. Notice what's going on. 2005, China vows to block Taiwan independence. Never to permit formal independence of Taiwan. That's what Beijing said. Beijing claims Taiwan, which split from China in 1949, as part of its territory. When vowed to push forward with the costly modernization of the huge but antiquated People's Liberation Army, whose 2.5 million members make up the world's biggest fighting force. On Friday, the government announced a 12.6% increase in military spending, its fourth double-digit increase in 5 years, as it tries to back up threats to attack Taiwan. They're building up real fast. China okays military action against Taiwan. Taiwan's government has condemned the law, saying it risks raising tensions. The United States also appealed to China not to enact the measure. The United States would be Taiwan's most likely defender if China attacked. Washington is lobbying strongly against European Union plans to lift a 15-year-old arms embargo against China, arguing that high-tech European weapons might be used against Taiwanese or U.S. forces. Rice warns Europe on weapons to China. China passed a law this month codifying its intention to use military force against Taiwan should the islands declare formal independence. Under its complicated policy on China and Taiwan, the United States is obligated to defend Taiwan against an attack from the mainland. Are we spreading too thin? We have to defend Poland from Russia and now Taiwan from China. And we're broke. Massive protests in Taiwan. In one of the largest demonstrations in Taiwan's history, about 1 million people marched through the capital saying, hey, we don't want China here. Largely because the United States had warned it might defend the island if China attacks. Anti-Japanese protests in China. Chanting Japanese pigs, get out, protesters threw stones and broke windows at Japan's consulate and Japanese restaurants as tens of thousands of people defied government warnings and staged demonstrations Saturday. Beijing is eager to preserve important economic relations with Japan, which has some 280 million invested in the Chinese mainland. Rumsfeld questions China's arms buildup. Military attachés to visit Snow Leopard Commando. This is 2008. Military attachés to visit China's Snow Leopard Commandos. Their special forces are called Snow Leopards. China is the leopard. The military attachés corps to China, consisting of 59 military attachés from 42 countries this time, visited the Snow Leopard Commando of the Armed Police Beijing contingent on November 12, 2007. Prior to this, the Snow Leopard Commandos has successfully hosted military delegations from 20-odd countries on either visit or inspection. The dazzling performance presented by these commandos in machine gun firing, automatic rifle, alternate shooting, sniper's rifle applied firing, short-range accurate pistol firing, capturing the enemy, high-rise climbing, handling of hijacked vehicle, and whatnot, drew warm applause from the time to time from the military attachés. And you know what blows me away? When you go to college, all the colleges in America, when I used to be in college, Chinese are everywhere. Everywhere. And they are the brains in the classes. And they come here and they don't get into partying or drinking. They're just there to study. And you see Christmas Eve and they're working and studying and they're just learning it all up. And going back, this is what's going on. It's crazy. The Italian attaché Brigadier Stefano Castelletto noted that the visit allowed them to know more about China's armed police force, the special force in particular, which would contribute to the exchange and cooperation between various countries, with China in terms of anti-terrorism and the related fields, and would play a positive role to the joint efforts of cracking down on terrorism and maintaining regional stability and world peace. This is the China Air Force. This is the Flying Leopard, November 2008. That's what they call them. The history of the fighter bomber. As well as serving with the PLAF and plan, the aircraft also has been offered to the export market under the designation FBC-1 Flying Leopard. There's the plane right there. Look at this. This is 2009, 7 months ago. Secretary of State says China continued investment in the U.S. is a recognition that the two countries depend on each other. Look at her language here. In order to boost the economy, the U.S. has to incur more debt, she said. It would not be in China's interest if we were unable to get our economy moving, Clinton said. So by continuing to support American Treasury instruments, the Chinese are recognizing our interconnection. We are truly going to rise or fall together. We are in the same boat, and thankfully, we are rowing in the same direction. Our economies are so intertwined, the Chinese know that to start exporting again to their biggest market, namely to the United States, has to take some very drastic measures with this stimulus package, which means we have to incur more debt. With the export-heavy Chinese economy reeling from the U.S. downturn, Clinton has sought in meetings with President Jintao, foreign minister, and so, that Beijing's, that is massive holdings of U.S. Treasury notes and other government debt would remain a solid investment. Does it sound like we're worried about the leopard? If China pulled their holdings out of America, it would bankrupt us. It would kill us. The problem is they can't do it. It's just like Clinton is saying, because who would they sell to? Everybody else is broke, so nobody else can pay either. So we're in the same boat together. We're all broke. Now what are we going to deal about it? What are we going to do about it? But you see that China is the leopard. After this I saw in the night vision, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. What major power remains in the world that we have not considered? You've got China, you've got Russia, United States and Britain. Who else is lacking? Huh? Rome, but it's not really Rome. Rome is part of what group now? European Community, right? The European Community. The European Community, the terrible beast. Have you noticed what's happening to the dollar? Dollar plumbs to new depths. The dollar fell broadly on Tuesday, slumping to a lifetime low. This is in 2003. Do you remember when the euro came out? People were saying, oh, that's not going to make it, that's not going to go anywhere. Look at it now. The dollar is worth less than the euro. Scary. As we near the close of this world's history, the prophecies relating to the last days especially demand our study. The books of Daniel and the Revelation should be bound together and published. A few explanations of certain portions might be added, but I am not sure that this will be needed. She's saying, you know, when these things happen, people are going to say, wow, that's the bear, and that's the leopard, and this is the eagle, and that's the lion. People are going to recognize it. It was my idea to have the two books bound together, Revelation following Daniel, as giving fuller light on the subjects dealt with Daniel. The object is to bring these books together, showing that they both relate to the same subjects. Our own people need to have the light placed before them in clearer lines. She wrote that in 1913. Now look at this. This is from the Jerusalem Post, 1990. There you see the bear. There you see the terrible beast with the horn. There you see the lion. You see the leopard. And who do you see here? A little mouse, Iraq, hiding. This is a caricature. I am sure that Daniel saw some of these things, and this is why he said it. You know, this is the bear. I don't know how that, who can put that together in 1990? Unbelievable. The prophecies of Daniel are to be witnesses in the world. By their fulfillment in these last days, they will explain themselves. The chronology of Daniel. Out of one came forth a little horn, the seventh pope. This is where we're going now. We're still leaving this open here. Out of one of them came forth a little horn. Daniel 7:7. After this I saw in the night vision, and behold, the fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong. It was diverse from all the beasts. Why was this beast different from all the beasts that were before it? Because of the little horn that controls it. That's the only reason why it's different. Of the little horn, Daniel wrote, I considered the horns, and behold, there came among them another little horn. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until the time and times and the dividing of time. The little horn would blaspheme God, persecute God's saints, and think to change God's law. God would allow him to persecute his people for a period of time and times and the dividing of time, 42 months or 1260 days. This same period is mentioned 7 times in Scripture. Daniel 7:25, Daniel 12:7, Revelation 11:2, 11:3, 12:6, 12:14, and 13:5. 7 times. Now, here's what's interesting. And this is heavy. I want to share it with you. 7 times this period has been mentioned. We know from history that Rome persecuted God's church for 1260 years. This commenced in 538 and it ended in 1798. You remember what happened in 1798? Napoleon Bonaparte's general marched into and took the Pope. He was exiled, died the following year, 1798. 100 and some years passed before Rome again would be able to lift its head. That was the deadly wound. It was given in 1798. But John the Revelator said the deadly wound would be healed. And it was healed 100 and some years later when Mussolini, the Prime Minister of Italy, would return the Vatican to the Pope and say, you're again able to have your own power and police and this and that and the other. Okay? Now, of the 7 times that this period has been written, notice it's 42 months, or 1260 days, or time and times and half a time. It's all the same. 1260 days, 42 months. Of those 7 times, Ellen White has used only 5 of them. There are 2 that she has never used in any of her writings. You will find that in Daniel 12:7, she's never used it, and Revelation 12:14. What does that tell me, at least? That the 42 months that we're dealing with in the end of time is 42 months of literal time. This is what I think it's coming. In the past, it was 1 day for a year, and they persecuted God's people for 1260 years. Now it's going to be 42 months, 1 day for a day. We're going to see that very clearly now. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken. And in his place 4 notable ones to the 4 winds of heaven. And out of one of them came forth a little horn. And he waxed great, even to the host of heaven. And he cast down some of the host and of the stars to the ground, and stamped upon them. This is persecution, right? And by him the daily was taken away. And he cast down to the truth to the ground, and he practiced and prospered. We saw the little horn in Daniel 7. In Daniel 8, it is the little horn that takes away the daily. Who is the little horn? How can we recognize him? What is the daily that is taken away? Both of these questions are directly related to the mark of the beast, and the mark of the beast is directly related to worship. Before we can continue, a little background is necessary to discover the devil's best kept secret. Daniel called him the little horn. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. The Apostle Paul called him the man of sin. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first. And that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. The Apostle John called him the Antichrist. Little children, it is the last time, and as ye have heard, that Antichrist shall come, who is a liar, but he that denieth that Jesus is the Christ, he is Antichrist, that denieth the Father and the Son. There is no excuse for anyone in taking the position that there is no more truth to be revealed, and that all our expositions of Scripture are without an error. The fact that certain doctrines have been held as truth for many years by our people is not a proof that our ideas are infallible. This is a very powerful quote here, very powerful. Age will not make error into truth, and truth can afford to be fair. No true doctrine will lose anything by close investigation. Notice what he's saying here. The fact that certain doctrines have been held as truth for many years by our people is not a proof that our ideas are infallible. What does that mean? It means this. We believe, for example, my personal conviction, the Sabbath is a day that you go to church. That's what the Bible says. Now, you could come and mount up whatever you want to mount up in evidence, and I'm not going to change my position because that is in the Bible. And Ellen White has said this is what it means, and we have inspiration for that. So it's not applicable to that. It's not a proof that our ideas are infallible. What is it a proof for? It is this. You have a guy like Uriah Smith, tremendous scholar, and he says the battle between the ram and the he-goat took place in 331 BC. Was he inspired? No. Did he have the benefit of 150 years of time? No. We may think that that is a position, but you better study it because it's not infallible. That's what I think. Okay? So anything that is not proven by inspiration, you have to study. And if it's not what you agree with, and I'm sharing this because we're going to get into some heavy stuff here, and I don't know if everybody's from the same belief, etc. So I want you to see what we're going to get into here. Don't, just put your prejudice aside and say, let me look at it, let me study it, let me check it out. Because that's what God expects us to do, right? Manasseh was 12 years old when he began to reign, and reigned 55 years in Jerusalem. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. For he built up again the high places which Hezekiah his father had destroyed. Hezekiah was the one of two kings that the Bible says there was no king before him or after him that was as good as Hezekiah. That was his father. And here's Manasseh, who reigns for 55 years, and he made his son pass through the fire, and observed times, and used enchantments, and dealt with familiar spellers and wizards. He wrought much wickedness in the sight of the Lord to provoke him to anger. Now, why would he do that? He thought he was doing right. He thought, my dad was wrong. He's a fanatic. He's an alarmist. I'm not going to do that. And then he was taken to Babylon as a prisoner. And it says, and when he was in affliction, he besought the Lord, and humbled himself greatly before the God of his fathers, and prayed unto him, and he was entreated of him, and heard his supplication, and brought him again to Jerusalem into his kingdom. Then Manasseh knew that the Lord, he was God. Unbelievable God, huh? After having your children pass through the fire, and praying to witches and wizards, and God says, okay, now you're going to say, I'm sorry, I'll take you back, no problem. What an awesome God we serve. Now, this is my story here, and it's your story. I'm sure most of you can see this. I know that for 27 years, I was raised in a very Christian home. My mom was a very religious lady. We would have to go to church every week, no matter what. My dad was a great guy, never had much about religion. But he went to church and stood at the back or walked outside and he didn't fight it. And for 27 years, this is what I did. One day, we went through a very bad recession, and here in Florida, the worst in 1974, and we worked for 3 years straight, 14-hour days, 7 days a week, until finally we got over it. A lot of people lost their business. A lot of people committed suicide. I don't know if any of you remember that in Florida in 1974. Nothing compared to what we're going through now, but it was the worst Florida had seen until now. And then I told my dad, I'm headed away. I want to go out and finish my degree in finance. And I did, and I went to the University of Florida. The night before I registered, we come from a family of 6 brothers, very united, very close together. I have never walked away from home. I've never been alone. and very protected family. And I'm in the University of Florida. My dad was not happy. He said, now we're about to make it rich in construction. Stay here, don't go back to school. Dad, I want to go back to school, etc., etc. The night before I start school, I turn on the television, and I see a guy preaching. He had a book in his hand, and he's saying, because the book of Genesis, and the book of Genesis, and the book of Ephesians, and the book of Revelation, and I'm saying, what is he referring to? I had never seen a Bible in my life. I was 27 years old. He said a little prayer. He said, if you've never had a Bible, if you don't believe we're in the end of the world, then you should start praying. And you should ask the Lord to help you understand. If you want to, you can say a little prayer with me. And he said a little prayer, and I repeated that. I was alone in the hotel, scared, wondering if I was doing the right thing, etc. I said a little prayer. I finished the prayer, and I felt goosebumps all over my body. That's all I felt. I didn't see an angel or anything. Just that's all I felt. I went out the next day and bought a Bible. Read it for a year and a half every day. Didn't understand a word of what I was reading. Nobody taught me how to do it. I went and I talked to the people that I used to go to church with. Hey, what does this mean and what does that mean? But couldn't understand the thing. Finished my degree in finance. Went back to the University of Florida, and I'm going to law school. And in law school, some guy says, Lou, the reason why you don't understand this is because, you're not asking God to help you understand this book. You got to say a little prayer every time you open this book. I started saying a prayer, and that book just flew open, and I would spend 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day going through the Bible. I just could not get enough of the Bible. Now, same thing happened to Paul. Paul thought he was doing the right thing. He was killing Christians. He was getting letters. He thought he was doing the right thing. He was completely wrong. Same thing happened to the thief on the cross. At the last moment of his life, he said, Lord, I'm sorry. So we have got to examine ourselves constantly to make sure we are on the right path. Because the devil will deceive, if possible, the very elect. And this is what happened to Manasseh. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord pondereth the hearts. The Lord knew the heart of Manasseh. The Lord knew the heart of Paul. Examine yourselves, whether you be in the faith. Prove your own selves. Know ye not your own selves, that how that Jesus Christ is in you, except ye be reprobates. You may be doing something wrong right now, and you don't know you're doing it wrong. And if you don't search your heart, and if you don't pray for wisdom, and if you don't ask these things, you are going to be deceived. And the Bible tells us very clearly, if we don't obey truth, our spiritual eyes begin to close, and we no longer can hear the voice of the Holy Spirit. This is very, very dangerous for us to do. And then once you take your position on something, look at Paul's counsel. But though we or an angel from heaven preach any other gospel unto you than that which we have preached unto you, let him be accursed. I've had people that have come to me and said, oh, brother, I've had a revelation, or I've had a dream. You know what? If a dream is going to contradict something in the scriptures, be careful. Be careful, because it's not a dream from God. Scriptures are scriptures, and you can bank on them. Another sheep I have, which are not of this fold, them also I must bring, and they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one fold and one shepherd. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him and he with me. It's time to put our prejudices aside and open the door of our hearts to Jesus. The Detroit News, 1998. Pope's call for worship, welcome. This is powerful. This one document can just disarm completely the little horn. John Paul II is issuing a stern warning to Catholics that they should set aside Sunday for worship. That's in this little paragraph. In obedience to the third commandment, Sunday must be sanctified. In his letter, the Pope goes on to say, a violator should be punished as a heretic. The Pontiff used his weekly address Sunday from his window over St. Peter's Square to urge church members to make time to keep Sabbath holy, the third commandment. Exodus 21-17 declares that God's Sabbath is not the fourth, is the fourth, not the third commandment. There's the commandments, and you've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. The first one is, I am the Lord thy God. don't have any other gods. The second one, don't make any graven image. The third one, don't take the name of the Lord. The fourth one, remember the Sabbath day. Why then does the Pope call God's Sabbath the third commandment? Prophecy had declared that the papacy was the thing to change times and laws. This work it was not slow to attempt, to afford converts from heathenism a substitute for the worship of idols, and thus to promote their nominal acceptance of Christianity. The adoration of images and relics was gradually introduced into the Christian worship. The decree of a general council in 787 finally established this system of idolatry. To complete the sacrilegious work, Rome presumed to expunge, take away, from the law of God the second commandment, forbidding image worship, and to divide the 10th commandment in order to preserve the number. In other words, you got 10 commandments. You take the fourth, you take the second out, now you've only got 9. What do? You take the 10th one and break it into 2. Thou shalt not covet is thou shalt not covet anything. The wife, the house, etc. They have now said, thou shalt not covet your neighbor's wife, or you shall not covet the neighbor's property. When the Roman Catholic Church removed from the second commandment, the third became the second, and the fourth, God's Sabbath, became the third. However, this presented a problem. Instead of having 10 commandments, now there were only 9. To solve the problem, the Roman Catholic Church took the 10th and divided it. The Roman Catholic Catechism reads, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, and thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. The 10th commandment says, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. It's all one commandment. It's, thou shalt not covet. Pope John is issuing a stern warning to Catholics that they should set aside Sunday for worship. The Bible declares that Saturday, the 7th day, is God's Sabbath, not Sunday. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shall thou labor and do all thy work. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work. Thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy maidservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that in them is, and rested the 7th day, wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Now, how can we prove that? Very simple. And that day was the preparation, and the Sabbath drew on. Friday is called the preparation day. Sabbath comes after Friday. And the women also which came with him from Galilee, this is a quote from the Bible, followed after and beheld the sepulchre, and how his body was laid. And they returned and prepared spices and ointments, and rested the Sabbath day according to the commandment. Now upon the first day of the week, very early in the morning, they came unto the sepulchre, bringing spices which they had prepared. The Sabbath, the 7th day, is between Friday, the day of preparation, and Sunday, the first day of the week. The answer is very simple for anybody. When did Jesus die? Everybody agrees on Friday. When did he resurrect? On Sunday. He rested on Sabbath. Sabbath is the 7th day of the week. The Sunday is called the first day of the week. Why then does the Pope call Sunday God's Sabbath? The Catholic Church, for over 1,000 years before the existence of the Protestants, by virtue of her divine mission, changed the day from Saturday to Sunday. The Christian Sabbath is therefore this day the acknowledged offspring of the Catholic Church, a spouse of the Holy Ghost, without a word of remonstrance from the Protestant world. The Catholic Church changed the observance of the Sabbath to Sunday. They don't deny it. You can just go to any priest and say, what is really the Lord's Day? Oh, it's Saturday. Why don't you work? Well, we changed it. The Protestant claiming the Bible to be the only God of faith has no warrant for serving Sunday. In this matter, the Seventh-day Adventist is the only consistent Protestant. Catholic Universe Bulletin, August 1942. In obedience to the third commandment, Sunday must be sanctified. In his letter, the Pope goes on to say a violator should be punished as a heretic. Because the third commandment, let me tell you what happened with this. In Italy, in the Italian language, it said heretic. When the letter was published here, before it was mass distributed, a lot of people here said, hey, those are pretty strong words in America, Protestant America. You better take the word out. And in the American version, the word heretic was replaced. You're going to see how he replaced it now. This is John Paul II, Apostolic Letter Dies Domini, 1998, paragraph 18. Because the third commandment depends upon the remembrance of God's saving works, And because Christians saw the definitive time inaugurated by Christ as a new beginning, they made the first day after the Sabbath a festive day, for that was the day on which the Lord rose from the dead. We move from the Sabbath to the first day after the Sabbath. From the seventh day to the first day, the Dies Domini becomes the Dies Christi. Another quote from that letter. For several centuries, Christians observed Sunday simply as a day of worship, without being able to give it the specific meaning of Sabbath rest. Only in the 4th century did the civil law of the Roman Empire recognize the weekly recurrence, determining that on the day of the sun, the judges, the people of the cities, and the various trade corporations would not work. This is the Pope saying, we're doing it because of the day of the sun. Now, this is an encyclical letter. Later on, we're going to see about an encyclical that has just come out a few weeks ago by Benedict XVI that's got some very interesting things in it. The church, as another quote, the church had to make explicit the duty to attend Sunday Mass. More often than not, this was done in the form of exhortation. Hey, you should go to Mass. It's good for your soul. It's good for your family. But when that didn't work, but at times the church had to resort to specific canonical precepts. This was the case in a number of local councils from the 4th century onwards, which speaks not of an obligation but of penalties after 3 absences. So if you don't go to church for 3 weeks in a row, now we're going to get tough with you. Excommunicate you or whatever. And this is the last one. When through the centuries she has made laws concerning Sunday rest, the church has had in mind above all the work of servants and workers. In this matter, my predecessor, Pope Leo XIII, in his encyclical Rerum Novarum, spoke of Sunday rest as a worker's right which the state must guarantee. This is union talk. You're going to see that now in the encyclical by Benedict XVI. Therefore, also in that particular circumstances of our own time, Christians will naturally strive to ensure that civil legislation respects their duty to keep Sunday. Civil legislation. We're going to have to pass a law that says you're protected to keep Sunday. Because right now, if you want to keep Sunday and you work for Walmart, Walmart is going to fire you. They're going to have to make a law so that the worker's right must be protected. Exactly this, the same thing that Benedict is saying now. It is the duty of Christians, therefore, to remember, one more, that although the practices of the Jewish Sabbath are gone, surpassed as they are by the fulfillment which Sunday brings, the underlying reasons for keeping the Lord's Day holy, inscribed solemnly in the 10 Commandments, remain valid, though they need to be reinterpreted in the light of the theology and spirituality of Sunday. So don't do away by Saturday, but you have to look at it in the eyes of Sunday now. Sunday is the day you should be keeping. The devil's best kept secret, God's true Sabbath day. We're not going to go through this. I'm just going to give it to you briefly. You can go through the study later if you're interested. In case you're not sure that the Sabbath is the day that we should rest, I think we've covered enough already on it. Was not the Sabbath given only to the Jews? No. Genesis 2, and 3. 2,500 years before Moses, God gave the Sabbath to Adam. Did Jesus keep the Sabbath? Absolutely. As his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day. Did Jesus ever change the Sabbath? Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Did not the Apostle Paul preach only to the Jews on the Sabbath? Paul reasoned in the synagogue every Sabbath and persuaded the Jews and the Greeks. So he preached to both Jews and Gentiles on the Sabbath. Will we keep the Sabbath in heaven? Absolutely. 66:23. For as the new heavens and the new earth which I will make shall remain before me, saith the Lord, so shall your seed your name remain, and it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another shall all flesh come to worship before me, saith the Lord. The Sabbath, God's sign for his people. I gave them my Sabbath to be a sign between me and them, that they might know that I am the Lord that sanctify them. So if you're not keeping the Sabbath, that's the sign between God and us. If you've never heard that before, then God winks at your ignorance. That's what Acts 27 says. But now, it's our duty to go home and say, well, I have to check this out. Because when I first heard this 30 years ago, I said, no, it can't be right. This is crazy. How come I've missed it? How come the whole world has missed it? The whole world has missed it. This is the best kept secret in the world. And hallow my Sabbaths, and they shall be a sign between me and you, that you may know that I am the Lord. First angel's message. Worship the Creator, for the hour of his judgment is come. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come. And worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of water. The issue at the end of time is over worship. That's the whole issue. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have a right to the tree of life and may enter in through the gates into the city. This is in the King James Version. The other Bible versions don't say this. They say, blessed are they that wash their robes. Big difference. Blessed are they that do his commandments. You want to enter into the gates of the city? You better be obeying God's commandments. What if I keep all of the commandments except God's Sabbath? How will God judge me? You break one, you break them all. James 2. When does God's Sabbath commence? From even unto even. How shall we celebrate God's Sabbath? If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of the Lord, honorable, and shall honor him, not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasure, not speaking thine own words, then shalt thou delight thyself in the Lord, and I will cause thee to ride upon the high places of the earth, and feed thee with the heritage of Jacob thy father, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken it. We have to do what God wants us to do on the Sabbath. We can't just do our own thing. You don't do business. You don't take phone calls that are business related. You don't buy and sell. You don't do any of that. In the judgment, men will not be condemned because they conscientiously believed the lie, but because they did not believe the truth, because they neglected the opportunity of learning what is truth. A lot of people say, well, I better not study that. I don't want to be responsible. God is going to hold you responsible. Luther called him the Antichrist. Luther was yet but partially converted from the errors of Romanism. But as he compared the holy oracles with the papal decrees and constitutions, he was filled with wonder. I am reading, he wrote, the decrees of the pontiffs, and I do not know whether the Pope is Antichrist himself or his apostle. So greatly is Christ misrepresented and crucified. This is what he's saying now. Years later, he takes the extra step and he says, when the papal bull reached Luther, he said, I despise and attack it as impious, false. It is Christ himself who is condemned therein. I rejoice in having to bear such ills for the best of causes. Already I feel greater liberty in my heart, for at last I know that the Pope is Antichrist and that his throne is that of Satan himself. I have nothing against the Pope, nothing at all. There are people in every church. There are good people and bad people. We are not going to go to heaven and find out that the right church was the Baptist or the Methodist or the Adventist, etc. It's not what church you belong to, it's who you know. Amen. Do you have a relationship with Jesus Christ? If you don't, you're not going anywhere. That's basically what it amounts to. People today are hung up on a church. They're hung up on a pastor. Oh, I'm going to check it with my pastor. If he says thus, I'm not going to obey it, because what about the Bible? You're going to put the Bible aside because the pastor says thus? This is what's happening at every level. And God is showing us what's happening. You take a guy like Jimmy Swaggart years ago, revered by thousands. He was caught in adultery. You take all these Catholic priests, caught in adultery, with little kids. He's disclosing, don't put your trust in anybody. Put your trust in Jesus Christ. Amen. In chapter 13, verses 1 to 10, is described another beast like unto a leopard, to which the dragon gave his power and his seat and great authority. This symbol, as most Protestants have believed, represents the papacy, which succeeded to the power and seat and authority once held by the ancient Roman Empire. Of the leopard-like beast it is declared, there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. This prophecy, which is nearly identical of the description of the little horn of Daniel, unquestionably points to the papacy. So the beast in Revelation 13, there are two beasts in Revelation 13. The first beast is the papacy. It just is exactly a duplicate of the little horn. Power was given unto him to continue 42 months, and says the prophet, I saw one of his heads as he were wounded to death. And again, he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. The 42 months are the same as the time and times and the dividing of time, 3 years and a half or 1260 days of Daniel 7, the time during which the papal power was to oppress God's people. This is going to be repeated again. History will be repeated. This period, as stated in preceding chapters, began with the supremacy of the papacy in AD 538 and terminated in 1798. Now it's going to be literal time. At that time, the Pope was made captive by the French army, the papal power received its deadly wound, and the prediction was fulfilled: he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. San Francisco Chronicle, February 12, 1929. And I saw one of his assassins were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. Revelation 13:3. Healed wound of many years. For over 100 years. Vatican again at peace with Italy after long quarrel. There's Mussolini in the Lateran Treaty. And this is the Lateran Treaty which gave Mussolini back the Vatican, etc., etc. This is all historical. Pope wants new international order to keep peace. January 2004. The world needs the new international order to solve its conflicts and ensure peace. Things are going to get so bad in the economies of the world, in Iran, in wars, that one day somebody's going to get up and say, you know what we really need is Sunday. We have taken God out of our schools. We don't pray. We can't pray in Congress. You know what? God is telling us, you're going to do without me? We got to bring it back, guys. We have to go back and keep Sunday. It's the only way that we can do it. And he now, see this 2004. You're going to see the same thing now. The world needs a new international order, new world order, to solve its conflicts and ensure peace. This is 2004, a few days later. Diplomats of the Vatican met with the Pope, John Paul II, to hear his traditional annual address. You see here people from all over the world, everybody dressed in black. Who's the one dressed in white? The Pope. And all the world wondered after the beast. 100 and some years later, the Vatican is given back, and little by little they've been gaining strength and strength and strength. A few more minutes and then we'll finish this segment. Daniel calls him the little horn. Paul calls him the man of sin. Luther called him the Antichrist. The media calls him the Supreme Pontiff and Bishop of Rome. Protestants now call him the Holy Father. And Time magazine dedicated 20 pages of its December 26, 1994 issue to John Paul, their Man of the Year. Notice that the papal wound of Revelation 13:3 was inflicted on one of the heads of the beast, which had 7 heads and 10 horns. Babylon, the mother of the great, the mother of harlots. Speaking of the same beast with 7 heads and 10 horns, John the Revelator states in chapter 17, I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast having 7 heads and 10 horns. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon, the great mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Notice this here. He saw a woman and he saw a beast. People think that the woman and the beast are the same thing. There's 2 different entities. Unfortunately, if you come from a Catholic background, you recognize that. If you're a Protestant, you don't recognize that. A lot of people are preaching this is the one beast. It's not. Please note that John saw a woman and a beast, but it was the beast and not the woman that had the 7 heads and 10 horns. Protestants that are not from a Catholic background tend to refer to this woman-beast creature as the papacy. However, we are dealing with 2 different identities. If the beast is the papacy, who is the woman? The woman Babylon of Revelation 17 is Rome. It's described as arrayed in purple and scarlet color. You go to a Catholic church and you see all the purple and scarlet everywhere. And decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand. As a little boy, I remember the golden cup with the Eucharist, the chalice. Says the prophet, I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints. 50 million killed during the Dark Ages. And with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. The power that for so many centuries maintained despotic sway over the monarchs of Christendom is Rome. The purple and scarlet color, the gold and precious stones and pearls vividly picture the magnificence and more than kingly pomp affected by the haughty see of Rome. And no other power could be so truly declared drunken with the blood of the saints as that church which has so cruelly persecuted followers of Christ. Babylon is also charged with the sin of unlawful connection with the kings of the earth. A woman represents a church in Scripture. The woman of Revelation 17 is the Roman Catholic Church. The head of that church is the Pope. The office of the Pope is the papacy. But the papacy does not equal the Roman Catholic Church. The Bishop of Rome, as head of the church, was given the title Vicar of Christ. This is from the Catholic Weekly. John saw the wound of the beast healed in verse 3 of chapter 13. John then saw the same beast with the same 7 heads and 10 horns in chapter 17. But he now adds, I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast. The rider of a horse controls the horse. Notice that this woman is sitting or riding the beast, denoting full control of the creature. The one that tells the Pope what to do is the College of Cardinals, is the church. The Pope, as head of the Catholic Church, is his spokesman, but all the popes are elected and controlled by the College of Cardinals. It is the woman, the Roman Catholic Church, that sits and controls the beast, the papacy. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color. We've already covered that. Have you heard the word transubstantiation before? Look it up in Webster's. You will also find it on page 328 of the Great Controversy. Transubstantiation represents the biggest abomination in the Catholic Mass, and the reason why so many Catholic reformers like Wycliffe, Tyndale, and Luther left the Catholic Church and accused Rome of being the whore of Revelation 17. That's when the priest takes bread and changes it to the body and blood of Jesus Christ, which Luther and Wycliffe were saying, that's just a symbol, right? No, that's not a symbol. If you drop that, you're dropping Jesus Christ. Well, how can a priest that got up with bad breath this morning, like we all do, have power to take that and change it into the body and blood of Jesus? It's ridiculous. But this is their teachings. I had to go and check that in the library. I couldn't believe it. And you have seen arguments for 1,000 years over this issue. And they're still saying, no, that's the body and blood of Jesus, the literal body and blood of Jesus. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. Classical writers often refer to Rome as the city of 7 hills. Chapter 17 does not deal with 7 different kings or powers that have ruled in the past. All of the characteristics apply to one woman, the Catholic Church. And it is in that context that John is shown the 7 kings which ruled that church. The woman sat on a beast which had 7 heads. Furthermore, any exposition that applies verse 10 to kings outside of the Catholic Church, which have ruled other kingdoms in the past, falls short of meeting fully John's specifications of fornication, blasphemy, and abominations. Blasphemy is the prerogative to forgive sins. Babylon cannot be accused of blasphemy. It cannot. Unfortunately, today many people are confused on this issue, and there's all sorts of studies floating around about who are the 7 kings. Who is this that speaketh blasphemy? Whom can forgive sins but God alone? This cannot be applied to Babylon. Daniel understood that this characteristic would apply to a kingdom which would be both religious and political, a kingdom which would know of Christ but exalt itself above him. If the woman or whore of Revelation 17 is Rome, then the kings of the earth in verse 2 must represent the many kings that have ruled and traded with the whore since the time of the Roman Empire. Second angel's message, Babylon is fallen. Come out of her, my people, that ye partake not of her sins. And there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of wrath. God is saying, come out of her. Come out of what? She is the mother of harlots. She has controlled the churches for 1,200 years. If you are in a church that is keeping Sunday, you are one of the daughters of Babylon. You may not know that, but this is what it is. She was the mother of harlots. The daughters are all those churches that are applying their views in the same way. Come out of her, my people. This is Revelation 18, 1-5. Revelation's last warning before the mark of the beast. And the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Right before the mark of the beast, Revelation 12, we are told, keep God's commandments. You're going to be safe if you do. The mark of the beast. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. And that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Satan says, this is Ellen White, Satan says, she heard this in a dream, I will make the observance of the seventh day a sign of disloyalty to the authorities of earth. Human laws will be made so stringent that men and women will not dare to observe the seventh-day Sabbath. For fear of wanting food and clothing, they will join the world in transgressing God's law. The earth will be wholly under my dominion. You cannot buy or sell unless you have the mark of the beast. That means you cannot buy medicines, hospital services, gasoline, nothing. The third angel's message, they have no rest day or night, who worship the beast and its image and receive its mark. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and its image and receive its mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And they have no rest day or night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receive his mark. And again now in Revelation 14, here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Before the mark of the beast, we're told, keep the commandments. After the mark of the beast, we're told, keep the commandments. Worship is God's final test. We will worship the Creator and receive his seal, or we will worship the creature and receive his mark. How close are we? What do you watch for when you're watching the news? Signs that interest rates might be climbing? Maybe it's time to refinance? Signs of global warming? Maybe forget that new SUV? Signs of new terrorist activity? Maybe think twice about the flight to Chicago? Or signs that the world may be coming to an end and the last battle between good and evil is about to take place. Time Magazine, 2002. Wow. This is what people are saying. It's no longer us saying it now. It is the worldly institution saying, this could be the end of the world. Psalm 90:10, the days of our years are 80 years and 10, and if by reason of strength they be 80 years. So Bible gives us 70 years. If you're lucky, you can live to 80. This was published in 1915 after her death. Notice what she says. The trying experiences that came to God's people in the days of Esther were not peculiar to that age alone. The Revelator, looking down the ages to the close of time, has declared, the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Some who today are living on the earth will see these words fulfilled. The decree that will finally go forth against the remnant people of God will be very similar, not similar, but very similar to that issued by Ahasuerus against the Jews. A 1-year-old baby in 1915 will be 94 in 2009. More than 3 sabbaticals longer than the average biblical life. So this is getting ready to happen, folks. It's just around the corner. We cannot go too much longer. The mark of the beast. If we know the truth about Sunday and continue to worship on that day, can we receive the mark of the beast? No one has yet received the mark of the beast. The testing time has not yet come. So no one yet has the mark of the beast. But if you learn the truth and you don't obey it, your eyes could close, and when the mark comes, you may be completely oblivious to it. And people may come and say, you remember we studied that? And you're going to say, it's not important to me. I got to make money, I got to worry about my wife, I got to worry about kids, whatever. The Lord has shown me that the image of the beast will be formed before probation closes, for it is to be the great test for the people of God, by which their eternal destiny will be decided. This is the test that the people of God must have before they are sealed. All who prove their loyalty to God by observing his law and refusing to accept a spurious Sabbath will rank under the banner of the Lord God Jehovah and will receive the seal of the living God. Those who yield the truth of heavenly origin and accept Sunday will receive the mark of the beast. The mark of the beast is exactly what it has been proclaimed to be. Not all in regard to this matter is yet understood and will not be understood until the unrolling of the scroll. How will it be enforced? We have no clue. But we can start getting some ideas. This is 2005. Senate approves electronic ID card bill. Last-minute attempts by online activists to halt an electronic ID card failed Tuesday when the U.S. Senate unanimously voted to impose a sweeping set of identification requirements on Americans. The so-called Real ID Act now heads to President Bush, who is expected to sign the bill into law this month. Its backers, including the Bush administration, says it's needed to stop illegal immigrants from obtaining driver's license. If the Act's mandates take effect in May 2008, as expected, Americans will be required to obtain federally approved ID cards. We all have them in Florida now. With machine-readable technology that abides the Department of Homeland Security specifications, anyone without such an ID card will be effectively prohibited from traveling by air or Amtrak, opening a bank account, or entering federal buildings. That was 2005. This is a few days ago, September 3rd, 2009. Countdown to real ID. Following the deadline of May 11, 2008, state driver's licenses and identification cards were not to be accepted for federal purposes unless the U.S. Department of Homeland Security determined that a state was compliant with the real ID or state had been approved for an extension by the Secretary. All 56 jurisdictions have received an initial extension from the Secretary. The initial extension is valid until December 2009. By October 2009, states can apply for a second extension if they plan to be in compliance by January 2010. Okay? So this will be effective before January 2010. How that's going to tie in with us, how are they going to use that to police the mark of the beast? We don't know. Ellen White never had it.